and welcome to this session about workplace readiness. My name is Daisy Mann and I am the Kickstart Project Manager working within the Careers and Employability Services team at Lancaster University. In this session, we're going to be covering the most commonly used communication channels in the workplace and how we can use them effectively. We're going to go through some tips to think about how to use your workspace in an office. We'll also think about professionalism, what it is and why it's important. I'll talk through some common challenges that people experience as they transition from education settings into the workplace. And then finally, we'll think about how emotional readiness will equip you to make this transition successfully. So to start with, thinking about communication channels in the workplace, there are three primary means that are used, and these will differ across organisations, but they largely sit within three categories. So the first of these is meetings, and these can be hosted either in person or online. Typically, it's a face-to-face conversation with varying numbers of people. It could be just 3 people or perhaps 50 people. And they are useful to get input from all stakeholders in an efficient manner. It's often easier to have a meeting, get everyone in the same room, rather than sending lots of emails back and forth. When thinking about meetings, it's useful to check people's availability to see when they'd be available to attend. And when you send a meeting invite, do be sure to include a link to the call if it's going to be online, or if it's going to be in person, make sure there's a suitable location that all attendees will be able to fit in comfortably. The next primary means of communication in the workplace is emails, and email is a formal communication channel, and it's useful for getting sign-off or written confirmation, because often in the workplace it can be important to have a paper trail that you can refer back to in the future. We'll talk a bit more about emails in a moment, but first of all, Microsoft Teams. This is used differently in different organisations. There are groups that are set up on Teams that can be used to communicate. In some divisions, these are used instead of email, as it helps keep communications organised and collated. And as well as contacting a group of individuals via Teams, it can also be used to message individuals directly. So this can be useful for asking a quick question, staying connected with others while still not working in the office perhaps. And you will see that there are different levels of formality used in Teams. It's typically a less formal communication channel than email, but this will differ depending on the exact context. So thinking about how we can be using emails well, there are a few key features that will be really important for you to use when sending emails to other people. The first of those is a descriptive subject. So the subject line describes an email's contents in a short sentence or phrase, and this enables the recipient to see at a glance what the email is about and why they should open it and look at it. It's important for emails to keep them succinct. You want to make any information or requests clear and concise, giving enough information so the recipient understands what you're talking about, but not going over the top and writing a longer than necessary essay. It can also be helpful to provide relevant links and attachments to help save people time when reading your communications. As I mentioned before, email is a formal means of communication, so it's important to be polite, say please and thank you, avoid making demands or accusations. Also, it's not advisable to write in caps locks because that can come across as shouting or aggressive. Also, it's important to proofread your messages to ensure you're using correct grammar and don't have any spelling mistakes. Typically, abbreviations shouldn't be used. It's not like text messaging, so full sentences with punctuation are required. It's also useful to know about the reply to all functionality. When you are communicating with a group, it's best practice to ensure that you do reply to everyone that's included in that group, to make sure that everyone's kept informed. And for those who might need to know the information but no action is required, then you can use the carbon copy or CC feature. So thinking about the email content when it comes to writing an email, you want to start with an address. So that might be good morning, good afternoon, or dear, and the name of the recipient. Then thinking about greetings, you don't want to use anything overly familiar. You want to keep emails professional, so use for using names rather than kind of pet names is better. You also don't typically want to use pleasantries that you might include in a text message, such as emojis or kisses at the end. This does happen, but again, we probably wouldn't advise it. And then once you've written your message, you want to add a sign off. So that might be something like kind regards or many thanks if you're making a request, or yours sincerely. It's important to include that formal sign off on an email, as you would in a letter. So here's an example email that someone might have put together. You can see at the top here where you would add who the recipient's going to be. This is the carbon copy field that I mentioned previously, and then the subject line. So have a think for a moment. How would you improve this email based on some of the tips that I've just covered? So some improvements that I would suggest adding would be including a subject line, a short description of what the message is about. They haven't included a greeting, something like dear. There's also no punctuation been used or capital letters, so that would need to change. They've just made a statement here in this first line, and it would be better to ask the recipient to complete the document rather than just stating it. And they could elaborate a bit more on what the document is about, or to make it more useful to the recipient. They also haven't included a sign-off, and sometimes in emails as well, you might want to add a personal signature, which states your name, your job title, your department, and possibly might include some relevant links or logos. So making those improvements that I've just discussed would look something like this. So you can see that an address has been added and a sign off. There's further details. There's more polite and stating when the form needs to be returned by. And you can see an example email signature at the bottom there as well. So hopefully that's been helpful to think through how you can be writing emails, ensuring that they are an appropriate tone and format for the workplace. So some other tips about emails. Your inbox over time can get quite full and congested, so it's really helpful to keep your email inbox organised. One way you can do that is to use folders. Once you have responded to an email or there's no further action required, then you might want to store it in a relevant folder rather than just leaving it in your inbox, and that helps you to keep a track of emails that you need to reply to or actions that you need to take. Email can be quite a distraction whilst you're working. You never know when you might receive an email. So some people find it useful to set aside blocks of time for checking email rather than dropping whatever they might be working on to then look at the email that they've received. If you set blocks of time throughout the day that you're going to check email, then that will stop you from being constantly interrupted and you'll be more productive. Typically, it's expected that emails will be responded to within 2 working days. This might differ between organisations, but it's worth being aware that there will be some kind of expectation on response rate. If an email will requires a quick response, then it's advisable to respond as soon as you open it, to then clear that from your task list. If you are unable to respond fully to an email within 2 working days, then it is common practice to send a placeholder to say why it is that you have not been able to fully respond, or what it is that you're awaiting on to give a full response, and when you hope to be able to make that response. Another useful tip for email is to set an out of office when you are going to be absent from work. This is an automatic response that will be sent to people who have contacted you via email, and you can add a message saying something along the lines of, "Many thanks for your email. I'm currently out of the office and will return on," and state the date when I will get back to you as soon as possible. And that just lets people know that you're not in the office and will be unable to respond during that time. So thinking about how you can be work ready, there are a few things that are going to be helpful for you to think about and plan for. So punctuality is really important in the workplace. It's really going to have an impact on how your colleagues view you. It's important that you arrive on time and are present while you're at work, and then stay until you finish. And then whilst you're working, try to avoid distractions. So keeping your phone on silent, perhaps in your drawer or bag rather than on your desk, will be helpful to keep you focused whilst you're at work. And then there is often a professional image required in the workplace. So do look smart, dress appropriately for your role. It might be something that you ask about in advance of starting. What is the dress code for the specific workplace that you're going to be entering? So then when you're in the workplace, it's likely that you'll have your own desk or work area. When you're working in a shared space with other people, it's really important to be considerate. So strong smelling food should be enjoyed away from the office. And if you're allowed to listen to music, then do be considerate of the volume level. Don't want to be disturbing other people. It's good to keep your workspace tidy, so put rubbish in the bin and don't leave it lying around on your desk. And then some people like to personalise their workspace. Different organisations have different policies about this. It's probably not possible if you're hot desking, but your colleagues or manager will be able to advise on whether personalisation would be appropriate or not. So when you are issued a laptop from your employer, it is loaned to you on the basis that it will be used for work-related activities only and not for personal use. So do use caution when thinking about what's appropriate to do on your work-assigned computer. So thinking about your use of social media outside of work, you want to be thinking about how anything you post might come across. So don't it, don't post anything that you wouldn't be happy for a potential employer to see. Once something has been posted on the internet, it can spread widely and more broadly than perhaps you originally intended it. So something to be aware of, and it's also worth mentioning that often the security settings on social networks do change, so do keep reviewing those and ensure that you do have appropriate privacy settings in place. We're now going to talk about professionalism, how you do the job. So some behaviours that will be incorporated under professionalism would include respect. So being polite and courteous with your colleagues, it's going to help you to build relationships and to work well together. Effective communication, so using appropriate language for the workplace, listening to others, taking feedback on board is going to really help you to succeed. There's also an element of accountability in the workplace, so you want to take ownership of any tasks that you've been assigned, and any mistakes that you make, you can still take ownership of those, and you can use those as opportunities to learn from. That is absolutely expected, that things will not always work out as planned, but you can be using that as a learning opportunity. Being reliable, so that ties in with the punctuality that I mentioned earlier, both being at work when you should be, and also completing tasks that you have been assigned by the deadline set. That will help to build trust with your colleagues, and you will then likely be given more opportunities following that. Try to approach work with a growth mindset, so be willing to try new things and learn new skills. You'll be presented with many different opportunities, and even if it's something that you haven't done before or you're not sure whether you'll like, it's great to try new things, as you might find it's something that you're particularly skilled at or interested in and want to pursue further. And without trying it, you won't be able to learn those things about yourself. And then also self-regulation. So thinking about how you are coming across in the workplace. You want to remain professional even when you're under pressure or stressed. Thinking about how others perceive you, helping to convey that professional attitude and behaviour. So why is professionalism an important attribute to have as an employee? Well, it's going to be a crucial aspect when progressing your career. If you come across as professional, then you will have more opportunities open to you. It's going to help you to build trustworthy relationships and create a network of colleagues who will also be able to help you progress your career. And respecting yourself by trying to be professional in the workplace, it's going to also help others to respect you as well, and will help you to build a good reputation in the workplace. So now thinking about some common challenges that people experience as they transition into work. Firstly, going from a structured environment such as university, where you have a timetable each week and set deadlines for assignments and exams, the workplace can be more unstructured. It's down to you, the employee, to plan your time well to ensure you complete all tasks you've been assigned, and you can be working on much greater timescales than perhaps you would have in education. Also, in the workplace, you will often be working as part of a team, and teamwork can present new challenges as well as opportunities. And so there are new skills that you will have to be using in order to do that effectively. The success of the team is dependent on all of its members, unlike an assignment where you are responsible solely for the outcome. In a team, you all are sharing that responsibility and have a part to play to achieve the team's vision. When you enter the workplace, it's likely that you'll be working with different types of people, perhaps for the first time, and this is a great opportunity to broaden your horizons, but different people can also present different challenges. So you'll have to think about how you can work effectively and communicate with people that are different to you. People often find as well, when they are in the workplace, they receive less feedback, which can be hard to navigate. At university, you receive feedback on your coursework, but perhaps in the workplace, there's less structures in place to receive formal feedback. So that's something to be aware of. And in a similar vein, less clarity on longer term goals. In some workplaces, you will have regular reviews where you will set objectives with your manager, but sometimes that will not be the case, so that's just something to be aware of as well. And so expecting these challenges will make the transition smoother for you. As you deal with each of these challenges and others that might come your way, you're going to be enhancing your resilience, which is going to help you to boost your performance and create the career that you want to pursue. So some tips for making a successful transition into the workplace. Firstly, would be to establish a routine and healthy habits. So when you start a new job, you're going to have to think about how you're going to get there. What time do you need to leave in the morning? How are you going to arrange your meals around that? How are you going to form healthy sleeping habits so that you are in the best position to concentrate and work effectively whilst you're at work? Largely, this will be down to you as an individual, so it's worth thinking in advance, planning your day and your week, thinking about when you're going to go and do your shopping, as your time will be less flexible when you're working full time. So it's good to think about how you can be getting into good routines from the start. Also, when you enter the workplace, it's great to be flexible. At times, priorities for companies change, and what you thought you were going to be doing might no longer be the priority, and so there might be a more urgent task that you are required to assist with. And being flexible will be really valuable for your team, and will help to build your resilience and enable you to progress. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You aren't expected to know everything when you start a new job, and often in most places managers and colleagues are very happy to assist and answer any questions that you might have. It's better to ask than to be unsure and then not quite achieve what was required of you. So do ask for clarity or to ensure you have understood things correctly. And you can also ask questions to help you learn new things. It can be useful also to set goals, whether that is personal goals or more formal as part of your review with your manager. It can be helpful to know what it is that you're working towards, and then you can look back and see your successes and how you have grown and become more skilled and proficient in your role. And do reach out for support. Similarly, as I said before, you are not alone in the workplace. You will have colleagues and a manager who are there to support you and equip you with everything that you need to be a success in your role. Then finally, just touching on emotional readiness. As you enter the workplace, you will be faced with many new experiences. At times, this will include new challenges as you adjust and face different obstacles. Being aware that this is likely to happen will mean you are better prepared when it does. So in order to stay professional, it will be useful for you to be able to acknowledge your internal reaction to a situation and considering what is a suitable response, because sometimes this won't be your initial response. So thinking about being prepared to take a step back and logically and objectively think through an issue rather than flying off the handle and reacting in a manner that isn't appropriate for the workplace. By thinking through what the workplace is going to be like, how it is going to be different, and what different challenges you might face, preparing these ways is going to help you to be ready to face the challenges when they do come and succeed. So in this session, we've covered lots of different things to think about as you are entering into the workplace, and how you can conduct yourself in a professional manner that's going to enable you to build strong relationships with your colleagues and progress your career. So thank you very much for watching. For further information about workplace readiness, there are lots of useful resources available on the careers portal that you can access via the careers section of the university website, as this screen share demonstrates. So from the main page, you can see you've gone through to students, and then there's the career portal option. We'll just let that load. And on the careers portal, there are lots of different courses, videos, articles that you can access that will enable you to think about lots of things that we have discussed today further. And if you have any other specific questions or require further signposting, then please do get in touch with the careers team via careers@lancaster.ac.uk.